to go ahead and start with the director who's going to read the preamble.
Great. Good morning, everyone. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Recusals from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Calling users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. We've also received emails from those who have provided written comments on a particular matter. Proper channels for comments are listed below. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the Wednesday 12 p.m. deadline were collected by city planning staff and disseminated to commission members prior to any scheduled meeting. Proper channels for public comment include sending an email to cityplanning@clevelandohio.gov, calling and or leaving a message at 216-664-2210, sending a letter or dropping off comments at City Hall, 601 Lakeside, Suite 501.
Okay.
Thanks for all who are joining us today. I'd like to walk through meeting rules and procedures, particularly for those who are new to this process. The chair will call each agenda item and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask the planning staff to summarize design review committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comments is noon on the Wednesday, and we've spoken about those in the preamble. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. If applicable, the commission will begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called. Thank you.
Sure. Michael, call the roll, please.
Anthony. Hooker.
Present.
Curry.
Present.
McCray Scott.
Present.
Sargent.
Present.
Slight.
Present.
Okay. First item are the minutes from the October 20th meeting, and we have them here if anyone needs them. I think Commission Member Fluker was not here. So I'll need a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
I move for approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, October 20th, 2023.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Hooker.
Abstain.
Curry.
Yes.
McCray Scott.
Yes.
Sargent.
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. First item is lot split and consolidation, permanent parcel number 106-09-059 and -134. This is at 6902 Zoider Avenue. Khalid Hawthorne is here from Famicos for this one.
So we'll move on.
Over here.
Again, I recuse myself.
For this one.
Good morning.
City architect.
Got it.
This is my first time to do configuration.
Commission Member Fluker is going to recuse himself from this matter because I think city architecture is involved.
Yes.
Okay.
So, actually, the parcel ID is 660 and 134 for this one. So
Wait, the parcel number is 10609-064?
60. So it's 106-909-060. And then the other one is 134. The other one is correct. So what we have here in the Homes is a project that we're working on. 40 lease purchase, scattered site lease purchase homes. We received a LIHTC award for this, and slowly but surely on the way to the finish line with hopefully starting construction in the dead of winter probably, but we'll begin site prep ready for properties. As part of this process, we're consolidating the lots. This was it was 2 lots back to back, and which created a non-conforming lot. And that's why we're here today to ask for approval for this non-conforming lot and consolidation. It's a front. The portion that's non-conforming is a orphan lot, and so we're creating one contiguous lot for this configuration, for this consolidation.
Is there a map?
Oh, sorry. That's the 5-9 property, and this, so it's supposed to be 60, the one that's directly in front, and then so we're creating one lot from
Is
there.
the consolidation map next?
Yes, so this is the accurate reflection of what we're doing here.
So it's not the one to the left of it?
Exactly.
Okay. Do you, go back to the first slide? So that's wrong too?
Yeah.
That blue is
Yeah.
wrong?
It's not-
Okay, go keep,
This is a reflection of the consolidated lot in the blue line.
got it.
Okay, so we're talking about the one on top and not the one on the bottom,
We're
correct?
talking about both of those have become, that's what it would look like when we're done, but it's not the long one to the left was the mistake. Those are the two.
Okay. Why did they do that bottom lot like that?
It's actually, the shape of that lot is like this.
Yeah,
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 okay,
yeah.
that I see.
Mhm.
probably because of the one facing the other street, 70.
I see, okay.
I'll move approval.
Yeah.
It's more of a lot. Second.
Motion and a second, call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes,
Sergeant. Yes. Slight. Yes.
Motion carries, and you guys will amend the numbers, what we're approving it for 060 and 134. All
Thank you.
right, thank you. I think we can get August for the next one. This is a zoning matter, so this will be a public hearing for this conditional use. So we will, am I correct in this? This conditional use is a zoning matter, so we'll take testimony if there is any, both in favor and testimony from the public for anyone who is opposed to the zoning change. And first we'll hear from the city and the staff, I believe, and then from Suzanne, who you're representing the property owner, is this correct? And so is staff going to present or not on this one? Okay.
Good morning, Shannon Leonard, City Planning. Next slide. So I'm going to keep this presentation pretty short to the point because I think Suzanne has a good presentation. This is for 4700 Tillman. It's located in a 2-family residential district fronting Tillman Avenue, north of Detroit. Next slide. The purpose of the conditional use permit and the need for approval from Planning Commission, they're proposing 2 townhomes with an accessory unit for later. And it's really the requirement that for the townhouse used in a 2-family district that they receive a conditional use permit from City Planning. Next slide. And in this decision, which you can make while you're watching Suzanne's presentation, you're really looking if the site is arranged properly for visual interest within character of the street and the neighborhood, if the layout is provided in a safe and efficient manner. And next slide, please. In addition, if the scale and the massing meets the character of the neighborhood and the street. And so those are really those few things that you're looking at to make the determination of whether a conditional use for a townhouse use here is appropriate. I will say there was a proposal about a year or so ago from Suzanne also for townhomes that on a nearby lot that was also approved by you guys. So for that, I'll turn it over to Suzanne or her architect, Mr. Schill. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. My name is Suzanne Tichenero. I'm here in my non-official capacity as a resident. And I also have with me my project architect, Shell, who is zooming in. And I'll just run through the presentation quickly, starting with the location and the site. The site is shown in blue on the first slide there. You can go to the next slide. Here's an overview, sort of zoomed out a little bit. And the blue circle right in the center is the site. The site is located near, you may be familiar with the water tower that's near the Shoreway. We're between West 49th and West 45th Street, north of Detroit, north of Garrett Morgan High School, right across the street from the parking lot for the high school. The Shoreway is to the north of the site, and then the lake beyond that. Next slide. This is just an aerial view. The blue square is the site. Next slide, please. And here's a regional plan to show you kind of where it's at within the region. The blue star is the location. Next slide. And there's just a picture of the site. You can see the high school, the parking lot, water tower, Tillman Townhomes just to the west. Next slide. And then I provided some photographs, which I know Shannon had some in her presentation as well. This is a view from the high school parking lot looking north at the site, indicated by the blue arrow. Next slide. This is looking northwest from roughly the same location at the townhomes, the existing townhomes to the west of the site. Next slide. And this is a view from the site looking south at the high school and at the parking lot. And next slide, please. And this is a view from on-site looking to the north. Next slide. This is a view looking east on Tillman. The photo to the left is a little bit dated. The construction trailer was from the school, but the photo to the right is how it looks today. Next slide. And here's a view looking west at the site. We've got a billboard in our backyard, but we've come to love it and leave it as sort of urban. So there's the billboard. Next slide, please. This is a view of the site showing, one of the things I really like about this location is access to alternative transportation options. And this shows the Lakefront Bikeway, which is steps to the north from the site. Next slide. We've also got great access to rapid transit. We're equidistant between the West 25th stop and the West 65th stop, both of which are within walking distance. So great rail access. And then next slide, please. And we're a block away from a great bus line, the 26, that runs Detroit Superior. And there's a stop right at 40th Street, West 45th. Next slide. So here's a view of the front elevation. What I'm proposing are two twin townhomes facing Tillman with garden level entrances, rear loaded garages, so each house will have its own 2-car garage in the back, and a shared driveway to the east. Next slide, please. We'll just run through the renderings here. You can see I also have proposed a lake cottage at the rear of the site, which will be lower, not as tall as the townhomes, my goal was to try to preserve views from all of the units, all 3 units. So that's why the house in the back is a little bit lower, the lake is to the north there. Next slide, please. So each house will have its own outdoor space that has views of the lake. And the garages you can see are in the back of the house. This is looking south. Next slide, please. And just another view looking from north to south. Next slide. So this is a view of the south elevation and the north elevation. I don't know if you can see the heights there. The height is the total height. Help me out, Jill. The total height of the house is, I believe, 37 feet, which is actually, I don't know if he's on. Jill?
It's 37 ft 8 in.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
37 ft 8 in.
Got it, okay. So, yes, and moving on to the next slide. So this is the east elevation and the west elevation. Next slide. And this, I think Shannon included this in the presentation. This kind of just shows proximity and layout with the neighboring properties. The big square in the center is the site. Next slide. So here's a site plan, and it's a little dark, but the dark area is concrete. It's the driveway to the east, the shared driveway, and there, you can't see it, but there are we've provided 2 guest parking spots on the site and some shared green space. So the plan is to create this area will be split and have its own legal description, and will have there will be a shared easement for utilities, maintenance, and parking and driveway use among the 3 units with some landscaping and green space. So I kind of liked the idea of having a community space on the site. I met with the planners early on in the year, and we kind of talked about doing 4 units, just because I think density is a good idea at this location, you know, given the transportation options and proximity to downtown. But we just kind of started to design it, and we were like, feel like we can't really, you know, we need some room on the site for green space. So we scaled it back to the 3 units. And okay, yeah, the next slide shows there is the principal pedestrian access to the rear unit is shown on this this depiction along the east side of the lot, and then you kind of turn and walk up to the front door for the rear unit, which faces Tillman. And this is kind of our attempt at a landscaping plan subject to change. We intend to use only native plantings on the site. Next slide, please. And this is just a program overview for the houses. That the townhomes are proposed to be 3.5 stories. They're approximately 2,400 to 2,500 square feet. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms with office, additional living space at the garden level. And then sort of an open floor plan up above. And then the cottage is proposed to be 2 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, and customizable. It will complement the townhomes, but can have a unique design and kind of visualizing maybe like a shingle clad kind of lake feel, waterfront feel kind of structure. And the parking there'll be 2, as I said, two car garages attached for each of the townhomes, and then a 2-car garage attached to the cottage, which won't be visible from the street.
Thank you.
That's about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So before we open it up to commission members, I'm going to ask if, take the public comment, since this is a zoning matter. And first we'll hear from anyone who's here who might want to speak in favor of the zoning change. So proponents, just raise your hand, or if you're here, ask that you state your name and address clearly. Is there anybody who has their name or their hand raised?
Don't see any hands now.
Okay. I'll wait a second. And then now I'll ask, is there anyone who is opposed to this zoning matter? Or who would like to ask a question?
Still no hands.
No hand. Okay, we'll close the public portion, open it up to commission members for any comments or a motion.
About the ADU in the back, you said that it's not the same height as the townhome in the front, but from the perspective of it looks somewhat comparable. Can you speak to the exact height of that? And you said the townhome is 37 feet, but I think in the one render on page 16, it almost looks, I think from that angle, that they're the same height.
Yeah, it may be the angle, because the townhomes are proposed to be 3.5 stories. You know, the garden level is subgrade. The house at the rear will be 2.5 stories.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Jill, in terms of, our plan, like I said, was to preserve views from all of the structures. So rather than do something really tall at the back and block the views for the townhomes, we kind of scaled it back a little bit, tried to make it just a smaller scale.
And is it planned to do the cottage in the second phase, is why the design is not necessarily there right now?
Yeah, we're thinking, rather than build something, it could be something, designed specifically with the more unique feel, complementary to the townhomes, in terms of colors and finishes, but still unique.
I would say with that being in mind, I think looking at the landscape plan, I would be cautious to put any trees directly adjacent to where that cottage is going to be. Planting trees that potentially could be, a hindrance to construction later on. I think some of the shrubs and stuff, founding from might potentially do that, but ease those trees up a bit. So again, when that cottage goes in, those trees are, can be preserved.
That's great advice, thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Since this is for conditional use, will the presenter be coming back to us for final approval on this project, particularly for the Lake Cottage?
To the commission member, no, because it's less than 5 minutes and we do not review any of this. For this.
Thank you.
We consider it infill housing and therefore should work in the process.
Madam Chair, to the applicant, if we can go back to the site plan, I have some concern about how the dimension between the primary 2 townhouses and the back cottage is really tight. Having lived in a very similar situation myself, where there's 4 units and a common drive that we use, it only takes one person to park in their drive or behind their garage, and it becomes very cumbersome for everyone involved. So can we go back to the site plan?
Oh, yes, it's still some bandwidth issues.
Oh.
So we just buy it.
It's almost. So does that back unit have to be that close to, when planned, that close to the 2 townhouses?
So that distance is actually about 29 feet, so
Well, my point here is it just takes someone, let's just use a Mini Cooper, for example. If you park behind your garage door, you're gonna inhibit circulation on that site. And that could potentially happen. So all I'm asking is, why can't that unit be slid back a little further to provide a little more breathing space when it's planned?
That's a good point. I was concerned about, I didn't want too much pavement on the site, but you raise a good point. We do have space to scoot it back. I think we could go back 3 feet. Because we'd still be within.
But there's ways to deal with like grass pavers or something unique, because you want to soften that up. I get it. You don't want a lot of pavement, but I think you might want to consider how that's handled. And hopefully you all love each other when you do live together, so,
That's the plan.
okay.
But yeah, pavers, I like the idea of pavers. I know there's some maintenance involved, but, you know, I think it might be a good option because of, you know, you just don't want to.
It happens, it's a bicycle or anything that could be left out that will disrupt circulation greatly, so.
It's very true.
Madam Chair, and I think building on, my fellow commissioner, I'm trying to understand, where is the garage for the ADU?
Where is the garage for what?
For the cottage in the back?
It's,
It opposes unit number one. The garage for unit number one, it opposes that garage.
Okay,
Okay. So,
Gotcha.
thank you.
We'll have from a staff perspective, we believe this is a great plan for aging in place, with the cottage in back, and we feel that 3 units on a 2-family is appropriate for commercial use. in this area.
I think one last addition to Commissioner Flicker's comments. Normally, I think you had mentioned the kind of easement for trash collection and all that kind of stuff. You show on the plan where you have maybe that trash enclosure or talk about snow removal, those kind of things.
So trash enclosure, we didn't really talk about, Shel. But that is certainly something we could look at. The easement, I've already actually drafted a declaration of easement that includes, maintenance, landscaping, snow removal, how that will be handled. Just didn't think about trash, but that's a very good point. I know some of the townhomes in the area actually have, with these elevated entrances, kind of have the trash cans stored in front, which is what we want to avoid.
Yeah.
Honestly, my hope too is that even though we have a 2-car garage, it will really just be more like a 1-car garage with storage. So I guess there's the option of keeping trash cans inside. I certainly wouldn't want them to be stored in the shared visitor parking area because that would be visible from the street. But that is definitely something we look at, maybe scooting the house to the rear to the back, so you have a little bit of extra space for some sort of a trash enclosure.
Madam Chair, to the applicant, what you could consider is drafting something in a homeowners association declaration that speaks to where trash might go, that is not visible from the public rights of way or whatever that might be.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I could incorporate that into the declaration.
Madam Chair, I'd like to redirect the commission that this is a zoning matter and not necessarily design review. So if there are design elements, feel free to take those as suggestions, but we should focus on the conditions.
Any other questions?
There's also no variances needed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCrae, Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Spike.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Great project. Are you gonna start soon?
Hopefully, yes.
Good. I take it you're gonna live in one of them?
That's the plan.
Okay.
I've got parents who are 80 and 87, so I need a age in place quickly.
That's awesome. Thank you
Sure.
Madam Chair, I'm recusing myself.
for the next couple. Okay, we will miss you terribly. We are, sorry. We're in the East Design Review. This is page 4, 2023-031. Walt Collins Veterans Housing New Construction. This is at East 97th Street and Harvard Avenue. I need to swear in Krista and anyone else who will be speaking to this matter. Are you online?
Good morning. Yes, I am.
Okay.
I
Do you
also
swear?
have with me Don Woodruff from Union Miles.
Okay. Do you both swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm actually going to have Don kick us off and give us a little bit of an introduction.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Don Woodruff. I'm with the Union Miles Development Corporation. I'm Director of Real Estate Development. The project before you, the Walter Collins Veterans Housing, has been in the planning stages for roughly the last 3 or 4 years, maybe even longer. It was conceived in concept with the Ridall Partnership. We've been working with them for quite a while. One of the things that we had a mutual goal to do in our neighborhood was to figure out how we could help our veterans. The actual namesake of the project is an actual partner in Ridall, Walter Collins. And so, after a lot of thinking and thought, one of the things that we thought that we could do is how could we house homeless veterans? Now, there are a lot of facilities that a single homeless veteran may be able to access, but what we saw was there were not a lot of places for homeless veterans who have families. And so we thought that that was a niche that could really be helpful to the veterans. If we go back to what we are, one of the other goals of this project, it's a twofold goal. One, to provide houses and services for the homeless veterans. The Ridall Partnership, they will actually be bringing a urban agriculture curriculum for the homeless veterans to establish some kind of economic stability upon moving forward out of these homes. Also, we figured another byproduct of the project would be introducing new housing into the area. As you know, during the Great Recession in 2008, the 44105 zip code in which this project sits was one of the hardest hit areas in terms of foreclosures in the country. So we feel that a project like this would also help us to springboard new development into the neighborhood and kind of get the pendulum to swing in a little bit more positive direction from where we were going. So pretty much with that, I can hand it off to Kristen, and she can tell you guys more about the design and all of that stuff.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate your introduction and the background. So here we are located at the corner of East 95th and Harvard Avenue. I can go to the next slide. This is just an overview of the zoning. It is a 2-family district, and we are in the process of seeking those proper channels of approval. There is one thing worth noting is that there is a specific map setback here of 20 feet, and we have the fronts of our porches will be aligned with that. So if you can go to the next. Just an aerial to show you, this is currently land bank lots that Union Miles is working to acquire. So there's not a lot here. There's some houses, behind our property and 2 across the street, but there's a lot of vacant land here. So this will definitely be a little bit of a boon to the neighborhood. Next slide. Just some context images. These ones are of the site themselves. Go on. And the next slide is just some of the adjacent properties. You can proceed. Here is our proposed site plan. So we have a single driveway that brings parking to the rear of the site. All of the houses will be fronting Harvard Avenue. There is a total of 11 units across 3 buildings. One of the buildings is turned to front that driveway, just to kind of for efficiency of space. We're kind of creating this nice cluster for the residents. We are holding that corner, the northwest corner of the site, for a future community building that we've kind of that we're planning for, and Union Miles plans to develop in the next round. There's just limited funds to get things going. So we're starting with the important part and getting the housing in. And you can see at the back of the site, we have a hoop house. That is where a lot of the agriculture will take place. There are raised beds, for ease of access. If, somebody's in a chair or can't stand or kneel, there's a lot of flexibility there. And then we've also created a couple of like living room type spaces for the residents to gather, seating areas, shelters, that sort of thing. You can go on. This is just our landscape palette. We are pursuing LEED on this project, so these will all be, you know, kind of native drought tolerant type species that will do well here. One feedback from the design review committee was about the trees that are fronting Harvard, and they wanted, we had actually changed out prior to this. So what you're seeing is current and accurate. We had changed out that street tree to be something a little bit broader and more shade, since we have such a deep setback. So we have taken their comments into consideration here. Go on. You can skip this. This was just part of our design review requirements to demonstrate SWIP. Here is an image of our monument sign that we are proposing up at the driveway entrance with the name of the project. It'll all be done in masonry and concrete with pin mounted letters. Go on. We will have a wooden board on post trash enclosure off of the parking lot. So it'll all be screened. Continue. This is a kind of an imagery board of the furnishings that we will be using on the site. We wanted something, you know, a little bit more homey, something comfortable, you know, woods, bringing those warm tones, trying to really enhance that healing aspect that we are striving for with this property. Continue. These are the light fixtures and the locations that we will have. All of the fixtures will be a black finish, so they will match. We have a parking lot light, pedestrian light pole for our sidewalks. All of the entries will be lit with that sconce. And the top left, you are seeing a flagpole light. Obviously, we will have a flag on the site by our entrance, you know, as respect for those veterans. Continue. These are just some floor plans. Keep going. This is our materials palette. We are going with some wood look vinyl lap siding. Every building will have its own color of either blue, green, or a kind of a warm brown color, and a beige kind of base palette to kind of tie the whole development together. Continue. And these are just, the next couple of slides are just a series of the elevations, front and back, so you can get a feel for how the buildings look. One more. And then I believe our last slide is just some perspectives to help you see, you know, kind of the ins and outs of the architecture, that they're very, you know, very interesting pieces. And I believe that is our last slide. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
I do believe Kenya Gray's on. He wants to add anything.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I would like to add, I really do like the overall feel of the Walt Collins project. I think it will bring back that healing aspect to the neighborhood. I'm actually from the neighborhood, so it would be nice to see a new housing option offered to the residents. So I support it.
And the committee recommendation from East Design Review was unanimously approved, and with the consideration to large trees.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? This is for final approval, just as we make the motion.
Madam Chair, I did have a question about ADA accessibility. I'm not sure from a design perspective if there are non-permanent fixtures that could be attached to the front, so if someone does have you know, mobility challenges or is using a wheelchair. I'm just trying to understand how they would access the units if that was something they needed to do.
That is a great question. Thank you. We have gone above, you know, given the population that we are serving here, we have gone above and beyond the required ADA accessibility requirements. So we are going to have 3 of these units, one in each building in this phase, will be a fully ADA unit, fully accessible, 0-step threshold. And these will all be, the balance of the units are kind of a universal design take. They will be adaptable, they will be visitable. So anybody with mobility issues could visit them. There will be at least one zero-step entry into every unit here. So
That's great to
we
hear.
have definitely considered that.
Thank you so much.
Xavier, could you go back to the site plan? Is Krista, it's so I spent a lot of time public housing in Ward 17, but it's like kind of garden style, so there's a similarity. And one of my frustrations with it, so I just want to look at this, is they did like a lot of right angle sidewalks, like from buildings to drive. No one uses it, and then there's like not trees, but there's not even like garden beds or something. So I'm trying to wonder, in addition, it seems like this isn't trying to do the same thing they do, where they like take two entries, consolidate them at right angles into one path, and then it's just it's longer, so no one follows it. But I'm wondering if there's like where garden beds and things are along the walkways too, so it's not just like random concrete and grass, like it actually has that like lower towards the ground aesthetic feel too.
Yeah, actually, if we could go back a couple more slides to the colored site plan, it might read a little bit better. This one, thank you. So you can see the darker green areas. We do have some pretty deep beds around all of the buildings and our seating areas. And the other thing, which was something that actually came up in design review, is because we have such that deep frontage and we added some of those shade trees, that we also, to enhance that frontage, we're adding layering of landscaping at that sidewalk. So there'll be some understory beds at that frontage as well. So it's not just, lawn, it's definitely a lot softer.
And I know this sounds silly to my colleagues, but how every sidewalk goes from the door directly straight, like I think when projects try to like split the distance between two units and you like bring them towards, like no one follow, it ends up looking sloppy and unused and things get trampled. So I like it this way.
Okay.
It's just an observation I've made over time.
Well, thank you. Yeah. We always know that, people are gonna walk the shortest path. So sometimes trying to funnel those together doesn't always work out well.
Thank you.
Maybe not a counter, but addition to Councilor Sykes' comments. Notice on the right, it's a note for existing trees to remain. If we go back to the aerial, kind of juxtapose it to this site plan, there's some significant tree coverage, at least on the back edge of the property. I'm wondering, what I'd love to see is an overlay of like how many of those existing trees were potentially considered with staying, and not necessarily that all of them should be, considering that maybe some of them are in poor condition, but also thinking that that might add some unique character to the site. I know there are proposed trees on the plan, but a large canopy tree, maybe 50 feet tall, could add considerable character to the site, maybe weaving path to accommodate that tree, if it merits it. But it's hard to understand where those trees are on the site plan and how many of those are being removed, especially, in the kind of the lower area of the site, the southern edge.
Sure. So there are a number of trees that are kind of on that property line. Admittedly, not all of them are in super great condition. We are kind of finalizing and evaluating all of those as we speak. Obviously, the ones that are on adjacent properties, we are in conversations with those owners, and we do have a plan. It's in the drawings that we had submitted to the city for plan review. That outline which ones are staying and going. I do apologize that they're not really shown here. With the exception of where the parking area is going, we are trying our best to keep as many of those on that property line, I guess is the short way to say it, that are feasible. Does that answer your question?
Almost like a yes or no, and I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about this, but I would love to see that overlay. Not necessarily saying that the plants, the trees would merit stopping the project, but without that information, the health of the trees, where they are in condition with the site plan. I don't know if there's a lot of I can't see if there's a lot of trees, or it just looks like that from the aerial, so it's hard to judge how much of that landscaping.
Sure.
You could certainly add that to the motion. I could come back to staff with that information if you want, since this is final approval, but they could just come back to staff before the director signs off to show the
Yeah, they
tree.
will need to submit a tree plan according to our ordinance, so that will definitely come back. But what I hear you suggesting is that, there are mature trees, they should be, mature, non-invasive trees, they should be preserved and somehow incorporated.
Yes.
You could add that to the motion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I motion to approve, with the condition that, the applicant look and identify, mature canopy trees, and do due diligence in order to preserve them and incorporate them into the final site plan and present that to the city.
Say staff. We don't have to.
City staff.
Yep.
Final approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion in 2 seconds. You got what you need, Michael? Okay. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Swett. Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. It's a great project, and look forward to it. It really is. So, the next project is also East Design Review 2023-040 Sankofa Village Phase 4 construction. This is also seeking final approval at 2390 East 30th Street. Aaron from City Architecture and anyone else speaking to this, I'll need to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, take it away.
All right. Good morning. I am here to talk about the Sankofa Village Phase 4. You can go to the next slide. So this is the fourth and final phase of the Sankofa Village neighborhood. It's been kind of a long time coming. The first phase is a multifamily building at the corner of Community College and East 30th. So we're talking right across the street from the Tri-City Metro campus. Phase 2 was townhomes along East 28th. Phase 3 was the other side of that street. And this is phase 4, which is 50 more townhome units. That kind of finishes out the rest of this neighborhood. So the Scholar House is directly south of the site. And then there's a central rec center and park, which is directly north. If you go to the next slide. These are some photos just of the context. The top left is the Scholar House, Tri-C, which are both kind of right by there. The bottom is the demolished cedar homes that this neighborhood replaces. You go to the next slide. These are the previous phases of the project. So top left is the multifamily building, and then the rest of these are the townhome that we are essentially replicating the same product. If you go to the next slide. So the site plan shows the new buildings for this phase, which are in orange, as well as kind of how that fits in with the rest of the neighborhood. So the East 26th Street is currently in construction right now. We've had a lot of coordination with them, as well as with the Scholar House and the Central Rec Center and park design teams as well. So if you go to the next. This is lighting plan. If you noticed on the last phase, it's sort of infill along that new street. So there's sort of 3 separate little parcels here. So this is the lighting. Again, it's matching from the previous phases to kind of complete that neighborhood with the same design language. So if you go to the next slide. Again, the landscaping, it's the same approach as previous phases of the neighborhood. Some lower level plantings at the units, as well as along the parking area, and then some larger street trees and a couple of trees in the green space as well. You go to the next slide. Site amenities, again, matching to the rest of the development. Go to the next. This is just gives you a better idea of how that landscaping looks at the buildings. Go to the next. The next couple slides are just the floor plans, so you can get an idea of how these lay out. Go to the next slide. Go to the next one. So this is a material palette. Again, it's matching the previous phases. Vinyl siding. There's a couple different color schemes that are the same as the previous. It sort of mixes within so that it looks cohesive, but doesn't all look exactly the same. And then some fiber cement panels at the bay for a little bit of interest. And then brick as well throughout. Go to the next. The next couple slides just show kind of the colored elevations and what those buildings will look like. Go to the next one. The next. So this is just an aerial view that kind of shows what that neighborhood will now look like fully completed and built out. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Again, we have Kenya on the line from East Region, if he has any additional comments related to design review and staff report.
So this was approved at the last design review meeting. I'm in support of it as well. I'd really like to see this phase 4 complete. Oh, can you guys hear me? I'm sorry.
Yep. Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would like to see this phase 4 complete the Sankofa Village. And I'm looking forward to it. So.
No comments? Okay, that warrants a motion.
I move to approve with no comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. Can you call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Price Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Splice.
Yes.
Motion carries. There's one more. Thank you very much. It's a great
Thank you.
project. It's great to see it completed. The next item is Depot on Detroit, new construction. This is seeking schematic design approval. This is at 10300 Detroit Avenue. You can see that it was approved, and I wanted to ask the discrepancy between the schematic on the agenda and the conceptual, so on the report. So there's a discrepancy there, but there were a few comments or conditions. And then while they're looking for that, Katie and anyone else who's going to speak to this, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, and if you can speak to the comments, there were some comments about landscaping or shade trees. And I'm going to ask staff maybe to let us know about the schematic or conceptual. So go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Katie Gillette, an architect with City Architecture. You can go to the next slide, please. So this project is being developed by Flaherty and Collins Properties. I've got a couple folks on the line here with them. Flaherty and Collins is developing some great projects over in Cleveland Heights right now, and they are bringing their talents to the West Boulevard, Coudell neighborhood of Cleveland. They are also partnering with the local CDC Northwest neighborhoods on this development. Next slide, please. In 2017, this site was identified by NOACA as a Catalyst TOD project. And additionally, in 2020, it was also identified as part of the West Town plan for complete streets and bike infrastructure improvement. So it is less than a quarter mile from the West Boulevard Cudell Rapid Station. It sits on the 26 bus line along Detroit Avenue. The 29 bus line runs down Berea Road. So it's incredibly well connected to great transit. This site is currently owned by the Greater Cleveland RTA. And RTA sought a developer that would essentially, bring this vision for a Catalyst TOD project to fruition. So enter Flaherty and Collins. As the housing market in this neighborhood continues to pick up steam, there is a great need for quality, affordable housing. And so that was a huge priority, again, as part of the development. This development will be a family building. So it is primarily going to be comprised of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartment units, rather than a more, common 1 bedroom studio type building. The site itself is a bit unusual in that it fronts Detroit Avenue, but it is flanked on the east and on the north and west with rail lines. On the east side is a freight line, and then on that sort of curved northern western boundary is the rapid line. So noise is absolutely a consideration as we're developing this project. We are working with an acoustical engineer to ensure that the building envelope can properly mitigate any sound, particularly from that freight line. Next slide, please. And here are a couple photographs of the site as it exists today. It's, again, kind of an unusual shape, but flat on the top. As the site fronts Detroit Avenue, the right-of-way sort of descends underneath the bridge. So we are dealing with some topographical conditions there. Next slide, please. In terms of the neighborhood context, it is a mix of some older historic buildings as well as some newer structures like the RTA station, like some newer apartment and other housing developments nearby. At a community meeting this summer, what we heard from residents was a desire for this development to pick up on some of the more historic buildings in the neighborhood. So I'll share that out in a bit, but we took heart of those comments and suggestions, and we're sure to incorporate that into our design proposal. And then the next slide, again, really shows the connection between the site as it exists today. Again, less than a quarter mile to the West Boulevard station, and then just a little bit, another minute or two down the road is the Cudell Rec Center. So another great neighborhood asset to be connected to. Next slide, please. In addition to understanding the unusual geometry and topography of the site, we had to consider other factors such as zoning variant or zoning setbacks. Fortunately, there is a mapped setback along Detroit Avenue, so that was somewhat advantageous. But from a zoning standpoint, no issues with setbacks. We do anticipate needing 1 variance for the project for the total buildable area of the site, but otherwise no variances. But from a sort of development buildable area standpoint, one of the biggest issues or challenges that we ran into on the site is existing electrical utilities that cross the site. So on the east side, there are First Energy lines that run right through the middle of the site. There is also a utility pole along Detroit Avenue that's feeding some underground lines. And we seriously considered this as a team, but it was going to be detrimental from a cost standpoint to try to relocate those lines. So we set out to work around those utilities. Next slide, please. The other piece of again, going back to the topography standpoint, is knowing that how the site connects to Detroit Avenue was going to inform where our vehicular entrance would be. So that essentially forced the entrance drive to be on the west side of the site. So we backed all those things out, all those constraints, and the resultant is somewhat of an unusual shaped building, but we needed to accommodate 60 units in a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. This project is being financed largely by low-income housing tax credits from the Ohio Housing Finance Agency. So we had very strict requirements in terms of, unit mix, total units that needed to be accommodated. And so we got very creative in how we sort of set out to make all of that work with all the various constraints. But in, creating a great urban form was our priority. We wanted the building to front Detroit Avenue. So we've sort of lined it and placed it as close to the street as we can, with parking and, vehicular access on tucked behind the building. There will be, go to the next slide, we'll see this better. Yep, the primary entry points to the building are focused on the west side, so there'll be an entrance both on Detroit Avenue as well as from the parking lot. We will have bike parking at both front and rear entry points. We are going to have a small sort of picnic community patio space on the west end of the building, which is where our amenities are focused. So that'll be off of a community room. Next slide, please. In terms of the landscaping, we have all native species. The plants were selected for good color and interest all year. The foliage will have great colors, long bloom times, good texture. There's some evergreens sort of woven into the composition. I think the biggest thing to note is, we've placed trees where we can on the site. There's some limited green space and there's topography where, a bit of a hillside where we can't plant trees, but we've incorporated them. One of the comments that we did receive from the design review was a desire for additional trees and green space. So we are going to be greening up kind of the rear entry point on the parking lot that's being updated to incorporate more green space and trees. We also are having an arborist study currently underway to fully understand the health of the existing trees on the site, and where we stand from a replacement tree standpoint. Unfortunately, much of the site is built out with building and parking, which we are providing one-to-one parking for the building on the site. Next slide, please, shows some of our amenities. Again, some imagery for the landscape palette, as well as the picnic tables, the bike rack. We are going to be changing the specification on our bike rack based on a suggestion that we received from PetBot. And then last but not least to note is that the site perimeter will be fenced off in consideration of the, from a safety and security standpoint, and the rail line. So we will be providing fencing along the entire perimeter of the site. Next slide, please. From a lighting standpoint, again, focused on safety and security. So combination of parking lot lights, wall lights, and then illumination with some recessed lighting at our various entry canopy points. Next slide, please. The building floor plans, again, demonstrate 60 units in a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, predominantly 2 and 3 bedrooms. Units are in the building here, and then common areas, leasing office, fitness room, community room are focused at the west end of the building where those primary entry points are. And then the community room connects to that patio. Next slide, please. The units vary, from 580 square feet up to about 1,200 square feet. You can flip through these. Again, some just sort of unusual shapes for some of the units just based on how we needed to fit everything on the site. Next slide. The materials, again, as mentioned at the community meeting, there's a desire to pull in some of the red brick. So that became a very important feature element for us to build our material palette around. And then just pulling in some sort of more modern materials with black and silver metal siding to give a little bit of an industrial look. We'll have dark bronze or black windows, and a couple of pops of color scattered with some a coppery color metal panel. Next slide. In terms of the elevations, we focused the more expensive material being the brick at the west end of the building, where we have some of those common areas, and just really trying to highlight that corner, that entry point. And then again, balancing that out with some of the other materials, the various, dark, almost black and silver metal siding. We've scattered in some, the windows themselves will be primarily single hung windows, but you'll see some larger window openings. Those will be focused at the living rooms. And as you circulate around the building, you can go to the next slide. We're scaling back on the amount of brick, but continuing that window pattern and interest as you go around. Next slide. So at the end of the day, I mean, I think this is a great project that connects to, fantastic public transit. It's going to open up a whole lot of new opportunities for people in terms of, a great living opportunity, great connection. Next slide, please. And at the end of the day, we're really excited to transform a currently, vacant, underutilized site and into a place that's going to provide housing for dozens of families. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Did you want to add something?
So Adam Davenport is on the line, who can fill us in on the process and how design review went and the ultimate motion that came out of that.
Director Adam Davenport here, manager of neighborhood planning. We did obviously discuss this at the design review committee level. We approved it conceptually at our first meeting. There's some notes on the board right now, but we talked a lot about some of the landscaping areas on the northern property line, as well as on the frontage on Detroit. And then there was a lot of discussion as well, this project being, directly adjacent to the RTA West Boulevard Cadell Rapid Station, and how that factors into our new some of our new TOD efforts and policies as well. That connection for those residents who are who many of them may be without a car and relying on that transit access for the 26 bus, but also the red line there. So lots of comments and suggestions for improvements to site amenities, like Katie talked about, for outside areas as well as bike parking, but also some suggestions for interior space for the longevity of those efforts, such as indoor bike parking or indoor kind of transit and amenities, much of which we'll probably hear more about with the new TDM policy as it starts to take some fruition.
And this is schematic, right?
It appears that they are requesting schematic, but design review committee only approved for conceptual. And Adam, I don't know if there's any other background that describes why the change or why only conceptual versus schematic that is important for us to know.
Not too much. I mean, it's just a big project. We were chewing through a lot of the site aspects. Katie talked about it really well, but it's a pretty tricky site with it being so close to the both the RTA red line, but also the actual freight cargo railroad as well. And those kind of dynamics as you piece together the site amenities for both kind of a TOD oriented project, but also what the developer and Katie needs to balance with what OFA looks to finance for LIHTC projects. So it's just kind of a tricky balance at the moment.
Does this already have an OFA commitment?
Yes.
Yes.
It was. Yeah, it was funded in May.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, we have the authority to do more than that. I mean, this is pretty far along. I have to be honest. They have materials, site plan. I don't know that we need to even see this back, to be really honest. I know there's some suggestions, but they've got all the site furnishings. They've got a landscape plan. Like this can go. I mean, this is a case where sometimes the process, you're telling me this is conceptual and it's going to come back 2 more times when we have half the time we do final approval and we don't even have all the materials. So, and I will add that I think this is an exceptional project for me. I mean, it's a LIHTC project that looks really market rate in a really wonderful way. And it makes me really wonder when we see LIHTC projects come and they say they can't afford to do kind of the really great materials and really treat that wonder why this is able to do it and others are not. you know, you can tell where I am, but I'm inclined to say that like, this is sometimes where design review for me is actually not really helping people get through the process and do really great work, which this is. So, my opinion.
My only caveat to that, I do think they're well along, is that with Adam's kind of mention of the TDM stuff coming online, it'd be great to give the applicant and the developer some time to consider potentially putting some of those amenities, like we talked about, you know, internal bike enclosure, you know, maybe additional bike parking, kind of to push the envelope. I think the idea of this being like an exceptional project within the TOD area directly adjacent to all the transit, could we push that kind of emphasis a bit further with, again, the TDM strategy coming on board, and then kind of make this a you know, maybe a first, not a first off, but an exemplary project of how those standards could be employed.
Yeah, if I can chime in, I think I'm very excited for the opportunity that TDM is going to provide us and Cleveland in general. The challenge that we have, obviously the parking takes up a lot of space. Unfortunately, from the lender standpoint, the bank and financing standpoint, we are uncomfortable reducing below 1-to-1 parking, which is driving that. We've had a lot of discussions as a team about that, recognizing that the parking is kind of sacrificing available green space on the site. But I think that we, you know, again, incorporating additional bike racks and some, for example, benches on the site to provide and support the TOD, the pedestrian-oriented nature of the site, are things that we are going to be doing as we continue to sort of flesh this out and advance.
Actually, only one comment relative to the site plan. I'm wondering if there's, so the rail to the north, the rapids in a trench and it's not too noisy, but with the freight rail to the east, I'm wondering like a sound wall, or if there's something that would like, just because those trains are big and long and heavy and loud.
Yeah.
So I think you get used to it over time, but if you're not used to living next to the freight train, that'll keep you up.
Yes, so we've had some preliminary conversations with the acoustical engineer. We know that the sound wall is just based on various conditions, and the height and whatnot is actually not going to be a viable solution. But that being said, we have limited windows on the eastern elevation of the facade. So if you look at that elevation, it's actually very, very few windows. We've minimized those. We will be specifying sort of higher end windows to provide that additional sound mitigation. We've got some data on our actual building enclosure and what we need to do from that standpoint. So it's, and that is something too that is going to be thoroughly vetted due to some of the environmental review process that comes with the funding. So it will be absolutely addressed. There will be other checks and balances that ensure that we need to properly address that, and that we're not just saying things that it's actually being addressed.
Okay, thanks. So I was actually going to bring this up at the end of the meeting, kind of the director's report, but just something for us to think through when it comes to landscaping. Perhaps, Director, we should be encouraging landscaping plans to include utilities on them. I liked how this one showed like the overhead utility lines that go through the site, but even like any typical project to show like in the tree lawn, like just the red line that there's overhead power lines here. Sometimes there could be other pieces to the site, just so we can kind of weigh our expectations of landscaping against reality. Because I like the idea of consider shade trees on Detroit, but there are overhead power lines in the tree lawn there. So I can see where that's not feasible or becomes challenging, because even getting trees over time to grow up over the power lines require a lot of pruning. So it could be just, I would assume any project has already figured out where the utilities are. So just slapping those lines on the landscaping plan might be a good thing just for any project moving forward to think through. The other two, and this is kind of more commentary for the city. I think we owe it to this project, as well as the Cadell Rec Center, the subsidized housing across from the Cadell Rapid, to really rethink Detroit Avenue. If you are from I think I'm the far west sider on the planning commission. If you're from West Park or Fairview Park and you don't want to take 90 downtown, you take Berea Road. If you're from the West Shore suburbs and you don't want to take 90 downtown, you get off of West Boulevard. And all of this traffic funnels up to Detroit Avenue, right just to the east of this site, and turns right and then turns left again on West Boulevard to get up to Clifton. So there's just a lot of cars and it's really wide, and there's people kind of playing Frogger to get across from the rapid station to the rec center. And I think I've always thought it's very dangerous. It's unnecessarily wide. So the fact that we're going to have, if we're really going to do TOD here, I think we need to rethink on our side how we kind of facilitate that. And then I would add on to all of it, that underpass feels like a great place to get murdered right now. Like, we need to think about lighting, and we need to think about who's gonna be plowing the snow between this project and the RTA property. Kind of, there's like a little bit of a gap zone there, so that we can really have this project meet our desires and be practical and feel like a TOD area and not just like a rapid station plop down across from a 6-lane road, which is sort of the current condition. So I think there's a lot of work we could do on the city side and the right-of-way side to kind of allow this project to really come into itself. But also there's a lot of people. This is a very busy rapid station, and it's something that we just need to address regardless. So
It's a great point,
Yeah.
noted.
Okay. Anyone want to try a motion?
So I'll just say, you're welcome to agree with or disagree with the committee recommendation. As the chair mentioned, this could possibly.
I mean, it can either come back here, if you do schematic, it would come back here once for final, or if you want to go ahead and approve it, it can also just go back to local and staff, but totally up to the commission.
I mean, there's still some things that they're doing on their end with environmental and here. I'm fine with bumping it up to schematic, but I would be hesitant to go all the way. So I motion to approve project 4 schematic.
Okay.
With the consideration that of the comments from design review, and also potential, maybe not potential consideration for the TDM requirements, but some of those additional comments for increasing the site's favorability for multimodal transportation, including bike racks or internal bike parking.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further comment?
Can I clarify? So you wanted to come back for schematic and also for final?
No, this is for schematic.
Yeah. That's what I'm asking you. Do you want to come back to the commission for final, or do you just want it to get your design review?
He's saying come back.
Come back to
for final.
You want?
Yeah.
Got it.
You got that? So this is schematic approval with the design review's comments plus consideration for the incorporation of some of the TOD opportunities, I'll call them. So when they come back, they can say what they could do and what they couldn't do, and to consider those, but it will come back here for final approval. Can you call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slide.
Yes.
Motion approves. A phenomenal project. So it's a nice opportunity, as you said, to set the bar. Hi.
Thank you very much.
And honestly, for both TOD for me and for LIHTC and for doing LIHTC around TOD is just an exceptional project. So thank you. We can
Appreciate
get Commission Member Fluker back. And the next item is 2023-041 Globe Iron Building Restoration. This is seeking conceptual approval at 2315 Elm Street. It's also related to the next 3 items, which are the demolitions. Just so you know, we're going to hear the full presentations, but we will have to act independently on all the matters, just so you know. And I'm going to swear everybody in who is speaking to this overall project, including the demolition. So if you're online, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Thank you. So we'll hear the overall project in total. I'm going to ask staff if they'd like to make any comments before or after they present.
So I'll queue it up just to give you some
Okay.
context, and then we have additional staff comments through Dan and with the presentation. So you last saw this about a month and a half ago. Since then, we've been working closely with the applicant, and several staff went on a tour of the building to see the condition of the 4-story structure. And since then, the applicant and the city has agreed to put a pause on the full demolition of the 4-story building for due diligence. But you will see appendages in lower level buildings before you for demolition, which we agree with. So overall, we agree with the direction, and I will leave it at that just for background context for you all, and then Dan will follow up with any additional comments following their presentation.
Okay. Thank you. So you can go ahead and make the presentation.
Hi, Jesse Swigert with LDA. We're representing AEG, which is the tenant for the which is the Globe Iron Foundry building. I don't know if the Planning Commission would like to go through the demolition first, or if you want to go through the proposed items first.
Technicality, are you representing the tenant or the owner?
The tenant. So the owner is Nautica Pavilion, who's presenting the demolition at the moment.
Okay.
So the tenant, to clarify, is AEG Presents, which is music industry, concerts, events. So it's sort of a two-part.
Okay.
And then Dave is on the line representing ownership of the whole site.
Okay, just technically, the owner is on, but normally we have the owner is really the applicant, even if there's a tenant in the building. But you have the owner here, so that's okay. I just want to make that clear.
Understood.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll go through our proposal, and then I'll briefly talk about the demolition, which we should be able to see in our overall site plan. So what you'll see in the demolition proposals coming up, there's 3 separate demolitions we're proposing. The first one is the white block to the top right would be demolished, and the white block to the bottom right would get demolished. And then of the Globe Iron 4-story building, there is a 1-story appendage and an exterior elevator shaft that would be proposed to be demolished. Again, that will be presented in more detail in the next presentation. You want to go to the next slide? Here are the buildings from the 4 corners of the block. So you can see at the top left is from Main and Center Avenue. And you can see the tan building in the foreground there that would get demolished or be proposed to be demolished. Top right is the 4-story foundry building, which will remain for this presentation. And then the bottom left has the tan building that's being removed with the foundry building kind of in the back. And then the bottom right has the on Elm Street and the vacated Spruce Avenue Street corner. Next slide, please. This is just for reference. I know there's a master plan going on for that peninsula, so we include this in the presentation for reference. And in that master plan, there's a heavy focus on Center Avenue or Center Street. Next slide, please. These are some just inspiration images of kind of working with some existing masonry facades. We're kind of doing more limited design in the courtyard to keep it more flexible for different events, which we'll talk about in a second. If you want to go to the next slide, please. Here's the proposed site plan. Spruce is a vacated street, so as last time, we're still maintaining a service court off at Elm Street to the top left. From design review board that we had yesterday, I think we're going to take a look at that pedestrian walkway more closely that goes along Spruce to improve that experience cutting between Elm Street and Center Street. You'll see in the site plan that the 4-story Globe Iron building, the white with the dark outline, is remaining and to be looked at as a different development. The gap between the 4-story building and the gray the foundry building, the narrow part to the left of the site plan, that will be a part of our courtyard. There will be a fence and gate there, but that will be an emergency egress only gate at that entry. So the main entry for the courtyard would be facing Main Avenue from the parking lot on the underside of the bridge. There ticketing for 3 bays or 3 security lines. And we're proposing kind of a simple wood structure canopy over top of that area to keep the security and magnetometers and stuff free from weather and rains, so the employees there can stay dry. The courtyard, so again, we're doing filling the courtyard mostly with a crushed limestone with a few trees, a few permanent benches, and a little bit of fixed or a few permanent plantings within there. Again, the main idea of the courtyard is it stays flexible and can be reprogrammed easily with different events. So this facility could be rented out for weddings. Different types of concert venues may have different type of programming in the courtyard before the shows and after the shows. So the goal of the courtyard is to really remain flexible. And then also we want to make sure we keep it flexible for any future development with the Globe Iron building as well, as there's possibility of some interaction between the two in the future. You'll see also across Spruce Avenue, the vacated Spruce Avenue, we're kind of providing a pedestrian walkway to cross the street. So we still have a entry into the parking lot that's still there and maintained. And then there's some light landscaping with the new parking lot under the bridge. We have to propose limited landscaping just because of county's access to the under bridge for maintenance. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So this is a in-progress landscaping plan. So we'll kind of come for our final presentation. We'll list each individual plant for our final design presentation as we go forward. But most of our plantings will be focused along the main avenue elevation along the building once that the 2 one-story buildings are demolished, and then also along Spruce Avenue. Next slide, please. And then here's the planting palette we're currently working with. Next slide, please. This slide here is some of our starting points for our site furnishings and accessories. So we're proposing at the 2 points of access to the courtyard a standard picket fence. At the moment, we're going to consider that to be the only fencing material and see how security and stuff goes as the venue does a couple shows before looking at a screen behind the picket fence. So we're looking at a 6-foot picket fence at those 2 points and around the service area. Again, we have a few inspiration images for planting around some trees within our courtyard, crushed limestone reference image with some brick paver accents throughout the courtyard. Next slide, please. These are currently some of our accessories we're looking at for lighting within the courtyard, canopy covering for the security line and queuing to get into the courtyard, as well as bike racks around our site. And then to the right is we threw in some inspiration images. On the images and elevations you'll see following the presentation, we are suggesting some artwork and signage we will get final design approval on those separately, but this is kind of the inspiration that we're starting with, and we showed some hints at what that could look like, or some areas that we would like to see this public artwork and signage go. Next slide, please. So this is the floor plan, and please just give me the plan is rotated from the site plan as we see. So Elm Street is now to the right, Center is to the left, Spruce is to the top of the page. But we put the floor plan in here for reference for how the venue works. Please note that the stage is on the Spruce Avenue side, and all the green rooms and back of house loading for the stage and performances all occur from Spruce Avenue, whereas the tenants access from within the courtyard into that light purple area there from inside the courtyard. Next slide, please. And then just for reference, the upper story mezzanine plan for reference. Next slide, please. Here are the exterior elevations proposed for the building. So from the last time we darkened the main color palette for painting the exterior brick. Again, we are only painting brick that is currently painted. We're not painting any brick that is not painted at the moment. So all the brick that is painted now, the main field will be the dark, it's like a very dark green with a lighter color for accents for where there's windows or arches that were infill from previous work to the building. And then like a dark bronze trim for windows and doors on the outside. The middle elevation to the right, you can see kind of the shape and form of the canopy we're proposing for the entry into the courtyard. And then the windows along Elm Street, we're looking at back painting them and then installing welded metal frames to kind of make a suggestion of industrial windows that may have been there from previous eras. Next slide, please. At the top elevation, you see the main avenue side. Until the buildings come down, we're assuming that the elevation is just exposed brick from what we can see up from the inside. And then this is where we're going to suggest some wayfinding in the form of artwork painted on the brick. And as well, we're restoring some window openings to the offices that are in the back there as well as installing some ticket windows, box office windows before you get into the venue. You see a few more elevations of the courtyard and some artwork that we're looking at. Again, we'll get final approval on those separately when we have an artist on board. Next slide, please. And then here are the 3D renderings. So this is with the sun setting over the lake. So it's a little warmer in color and texture, but this is looking at the development along Spruce Avenue with the security loading area, maintaining the existing brick pavers in front of the Globe Iron building, the 4-story Globe Iron building. Next slide, please. And this is looking at the main avenue size, the bridge side of the project, looking at the elevation facing Main Avenue once the building comes down and where the main entry would be, getting into the courtyard. Next slide, please. This is from the corner of Elm and Spruce, looking at the main elevation on Elm and our 6-foot fence going along the security and loading area to the stage. Next slide, please. Here we have the main entry rendering here, where you can see the windows and the box office windows as well, looking into the courtyard. Next slide, please. And then just a few views of the open courtyard space. Again, the idea is that this space stays very flexible and the programming of the courtyard can change throughout its, depending on what each show or each use of the venue. Next slide, please. And another view within the courtyard. Next slide. And looking from the Globe Iron building back towards the main show entry. Next slide, please. And I believe that's the last rendering from within the courtyard. So if there's any questions or if you want to look at the demolition package next.
Yeah, actually, very quickly, just show us the three different, if there's a one site plan that shows the the smaller demolitions, that'd be useful before we discuss it, but we will take action separately. Do you have one?
I believe Dave and Chris Kazmar have those.
Chris, why don't you show them the
you're going to see here once the images are on your screen is essentially we've done it in such a way as to represent before and after imagery, 3D imagery of the existing block, and then how it would look when the demolition is complete for what we're proposing with you here today. And you can toggle back and forth between each of these images. That first one was a view to the east. This is a site plan view from directly above with north to the 12 o'clock. And as you toggle back and forth, you can see the one-story appendages from the Globe Iron building on the north side of the Globe Iron building being demolished to create space for the courtyard that Jesse just articulated in his presentation, as well as the one-story buildings just to the east that would make way for the parking area and the expanded entry facing east below the county, on the county property below the bridge. Okay. Next slide, please. Again, much of the same before and after. This is a view from the northeast looking to the southwest. You can see the elevator tower here in the interior corner of the courtyard also being removed. That's scheduled for demolition to make way for the courtyard. One of the comments yesterday from Local Design Review was that we keep consideration for a rebuild of an elevator in that corner, so that's a good thought. But essentially, this is a before and after view of the courtyard before, with the existing conditions today, and then the buildings, the one and 1.5 story buildings scheduled for demolition being removed. Next slide. A view from the southwest looking to the northeast again with the bridge in the distance, the before and after of the block with the buildings present, and then the buildings scheduled for demolition.
Thank you. Thank you.
Slides.
So
Thank you.
that was very helpful, actually, really helpful with the before and afters. So thank you for doing this. The commission members, any questions? Lots of
Madam.
Oh,
Do you have anything else to add down to the discussion?
So I did just want to talk through some of the discussion yesterday with local design review. And also maybe we could kick off with, I don't know if Carl's on the line, the landmarks perspective, just given the historic nature of the 4-story structure. Xavier, do we see Carl on?
He's not on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, mustn't maybe.
Yeah.
Second rate Carl here.
Agreed.
Yeah, so
Dan,
yeah, this building, well, it's not a individually designated local landmark. It is on the National Register of Historic Places, and certainly an important piece of Cleveland's industrial past. So we just wanted to thank the tenant and the building owner for being willing to compromise and work with the city to find an outcome that works for all of us. We have no issues with the demolitions that are being proposed today. The additions and the smaller buildings, those are fine to go. We just want to ensure that care is taken when those additions are taken off the rear of the 4-story building, that that there's no damage to the building, and are interested to see the details on how that area is going to be treated. Because when we were in the building at the site visit, it looked like there was quite a bit of like cinder block CMU infill. So kind of curious how that'll all be treated, and want to make sure that there's no damage to the historic portions of the building during that demo. Otherwise, yeah, I think the idea of leaving that corner, while you're taking down the elevator tower, leaving that corner sort of open for potential for a future elevator makes a lot of sense. And then we also just wanted to, I guess, confirm that the doghouse on the roof, the access to the roof there, that was kind of from a spiral staircase, is that going to remain so that there's still some access to the roof?
Yes, the intention would be that would remain intact until such time as the use of the building is determined. That is not scheduled for demolition at this time, correct?
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, otherwise we're like I said, supportive of the proposal as it stands today.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I mean, so this was discussed heavily with our local design review committee, and a number of conditions were asked for along with the approval. As mentioned, the elevator shaft, leaving room for a future elevator once future kind of proposed use of that structure can be determined. There's also some unique architectural aspects that the committee and our staff team would like to see the applicant explore. There's some storage, what are being called kind of storage locker areas that are just beautiful archways, part of that historic nature of that building that could be better utilized with, future proposal of this renovation. Definitely looking at any of the county's pavement restrictions in that area as it is under the bridge, and all the utility connections, and making sure that that's verified before, kind of coming back to us with schematic. And then, as mentioned, the spiral staircase, the doghouse. It was also mentioned in the applicant's proposal about a set date of sometime in March to proceed with demolition if they hadn't heard back from, a resolution. We're not in favor of that at this time. At the end of the day, we want the applicant to understand that any additional demolition proposed at this site would have to come back through local committee design review and through the commission for review and approval before any future actions would take place.
It is by our code that we can allow for postponement of demolition up to 6 months with the agreement of the applicant. So again, for due diligence, that is a discussion we've had, and so you're welcome to name the date that you feel is appropriate with this approach. So 6 months from now would be May. But what you're saying is that they just have to come back for the demo should we agree that the due diligence has been done and there's no future.
Correct.
I'll also mention that two things. I think having a courtyard with the building there would be really cool because across the street is Mulberry's, the volleyball and bar, and so having more intimate space for events and weddings would be helpful. Get uplighted, build Italy. And then secondly, this is one project that we'll be working very closely with the applicant on, especially with economic development as Director McNair steps into his role and figuring out what tools can we explore for due diligence to see some future use, whether it's just a first floor or the whole building. So that's where we are. Thank you.
And many of the reasons behind that is just the fact that on this peninsula, there's very little of that historic kind of industrial character architecture left. So we're really down to some of the last major buildings and again, on the historic register. And in addition, as we move forward towards schematic, the committee was also just noting, ways in which to, further highlight the unique architecture on the site. And right now, some of the plans don't quite get there, especially at that north facade. Maintaining an urban downtown feel to the site, as some of that site design was noted to have kind of a suburban feel that felt very out of place. And then the committee did recommend bringing on a landscape architecture firm to assist with that courtyard design to better kind of complement the existing historic architecture, really embed nicely into that space and think through, functional seating and passive programmatic elements to make that a very successful space. But overall, staff was very excited about the direction that this is taking, what this facility could look like in the future. I think everybody is in agreement that a concert venue here, an event venue here with this kind of historic setting and the approach that the applicant is now taking could be a really great addition to our city.
Okay, thank you. Commission members, any discussion or comment? Go ahead.
Just in the future, guys, could you just bullet point your thoughts? Because this is a major run-on sentence to try and form a motion around. That's just me. But I just want to make some commentary. I don't know where this starts, where it's going to end. I have not, all the proposals I've seen gives no recognition to how scooters, whether they're combustion, whether they're e-bikes, whether they're bikes are being parked. And I go to all these cities. I go to Toronto, I go to Philadelphia, Miami, all over the country, and they actually take parking spaces and they bifurcate them. And so you can actually pull your scooter in to a parking space and not have to take up an entire parking space. We need to start designing our parking lots in our public rights of way and privately to start addressing that. I mean, my frustration when I go on the flats is, where do I park my bike, right? I don't know if it's gotten better or not, but it's a challenge. And so, again, I would like to see this applicant address that because there's many modes of transportation and we need to start accounting for it. Thank you.
I have a procedural question. So I just want to clarify for the commission what I think I heard, because we're gonna act, right? So we're gonna make 4 motions. One is gonna be to the proposal around the conceptual approval with some comments. And we have 3 demolitions of 3 smaller buildings. What I'm confused by is that the 4th one actually isn't on here, which is the postponement of the demolition of the larger building. And the reason I say it's not on here is it was referenced that, that they either have to act on that or not, you know, because the commission actually, there are multiple ways we could have gone, which is to deny it, right? Outright, as opposed to leave it postponed on the other building. And it's not on the agenda. So in referencing it, it's confusing because we are not acting on it. And you just gave us knowledge that there is a possibility that it could move forward because of, and I've been through this since I've been on the commission so long, where something, if you don't act on it as of right, gets to do demolition. So who's responsible to trigger this 6-month moment so that it's not the applicant? That's why I'm saying this.
So.
Do you understand?
I agree with you. That's why it's vague.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda. So basically, we can take our action, but I do think that the commission ought to make clear what its position is on the other demolition. And I say this to the applicants with my opinion that I think this project is evolving to be quite excellent in how it's conceived and presented, and it's really extraordinary. And I didn't even realize from when you came back the first time that in demolishing the 3 smaller pieces and leaving the other historic building could provide, you know, just an extraordinary place. Like, I mean it. Like, it sort of reminds me of the Hoyt Block and Worthington Yards, and what happened there is magical, right? This has that potential to be a magical place, to hear a concert, to be outside, to be inside this kind of courtyard. So, so ironically, you provided us with a bit of a plan here that we all ought to get behind in terms of helping you find a way to renovate the building, whether it be housing or something else, because it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense and will be a beautiful thing that will actually attract more people to your venue in the long run. Okay, so that was a lot of comments, but and I know what our actions are today, but I don't want to leave that other one out there hanging.
Yeah, can I read
Yes.
for the commission,
Yes.
the zoning code, because I believe this could help us provide clarity. So under 341.08B, the city planning commission may delay action of the demolition for a period not more than 6 months on the demolition or moving of the building in order to allow economic viability studies to be conducted, as well as to allow interested parties the opportunity to explore alternatives to proposed action. At the end of such period, the commission shall either approve or disapprove the request to demolish or move, or may choose to delay action for a second or final period of not more than 6 months if the commission determines that this additional time period may be useful in securing an alternative to the proposed demolition or moving. At the end of such second and final period, the commission shall either approve or disapprove the request. So
They have to come back, but we have to act one way or the other. We can't postpone twice, basically.
I'm confused now.
Yes.
Because
No, no, we can only do one more time. It's basically saying after 6 months, they have to come back, but we must act the second time. We
I
can't delay
understand
it.
that part. I understand everything you said. What I don't understand is, where's that building on this agenda?
It's not, we're not.
That's the conundrum.
the conundrum is we have partial demolition listed, but not the actual demolition.
Well, it just means they have to come back, right? And we then follow this procedure. At some point, we're gonna have to, we can't, the point of this ordinance, as I've seen it play out in the past, is that the commission cannot just delay something forever. It's not fair, right? We couldn't delay this in perpetuity. And this ordinance is put in place so that at some point we have to approve or deny. But what is on here, which is good news, is that they have to come back. The real question mark will be, when they come back, do we start back over with this 6 months or not? Because, yeah.
Time out. Let's go back to the scene of the crime. What did we decide the last meeting we had with them? What did we, pardon?
We postponed.
We postponed it. Okay.
But not on this criteria.
Wait, no, we postponed it. They're just coming back with a partial demolition. So there's some gray area here is what.
Right, that's my point.
Madam Chair, if I may. You postponed everything.
Right.
So now it's coming back and it's modified based on the postponement.
That's my point.
So the way I see it, they've withdrawn their request for full demolition of this 4-story building and instead are giving you something that is palatable with the partial demolition. So I don't think you're just sitting on this project waiting for something to happen.
But
There you go.
But the
That's
point is, a new application is required.
Yes.
A brand new application is required. They're not coming back in on a
Full
postponement.
demolition is not sitting there waiting for you.
Correct.
To
Yeah.
do
So it
something.
hasn't started
Okay.
yet.
This is a
Back
new.
with something
It's a
different.
completely new.
Exactly.
That's the way it should be.
It's still
There
the
you go.
same building.
All right.
So now they're not asking.
Right. That would have really.
All right.
All right, so
We
that's
got
not on the table.
We got it. It's not on the table. If it's up to the applicant, if you're gonna come back for whatever, renovation, demolition, it's a brand new application.
Thank
Got
you.
it.
We
All right.
understand.
Okay.
All right, we're all on the same page now.
All right, thank you. All right. Any questions or comments?
Just, I'd like to just echo, design review's comments on kind of the further development of like the programmatic and landscape elements of, not only the connections to, well, not only the courtyard, but also the connections to the street and the parking lot spaces to to Commissioner Fluker's comments, making sure that multimodal transportation is addressed within the landscape, with meaningful accommodations. But I think, again, the courtyard has progressed significantly since the last kind of presentation, but I still think there's some elements that I'm kind of unclear of why things are done, like the emphasis on crushed stone. Is that a drainage thing, or just that the applicant or the design firm likes that material? Some of the planting suggestions for the artificial turf, like a sunken tree, some of those things just don't seem right. And I think, some further development on that would need to come back before.
I could talk a little bit about the crushed stone and the artificial turf if you like. We can go in a little bit more detail about that. So with the crushed limestone, so it'd be a fine grain crushed limestone. Main concern is drainage. We don't want to put, it's a kind of the tenant's ideal solution to kind of, keeping a nice firm ground without adding, impervious pavement with inside the courtyard. And then with the artificial grass, again, we're trying to, with the tenant, keep it maintenance free and clean. At all times, a lot of artificial grass was used along the Nautica Pavilion and down along the boardwalk, which has held up well and works well for maintenance standpoints, because it is a private courtyard that's secured from the public as well. So again, we're just trying to eliminate, people coming in with lawnmowers and stuff like that to trim grass. And we want grass and soft surfaces to be within the courtyard. So when it's nice out and you're waiting for the show, you can sit down on, softer ground and hang out. So that was the initial, and then we did show a little bit of banding accents within the courtyard that are, brick pavers to help with some access and break up the space a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much of the time, but I'm worried about some of that material migration. I don't think the banded brick is going to keep one thing from sliding. I feel like that thing is going to disappear over time. People shuffling across that. I'd be interested to see what the detail is going to be. I understand the idea for artificial turf for people to sit. I'm not convinced that the seating opportunities, like the seated planter around the trees, are going to be places where people are going to congregate. That small small circle. People don't really like to sit directly, turn next to the people that they're. I just think there's further development on the courtyard to actually.
And I guess we'll work with the tenant a little bit more on that, but the tenant wants to put out temporary furniture for different types of events and what they anticipate the occupancy is going to be. So it's not just going to be blank all the time, like I showed it. Like depending on the venue, there'd be a bunch of cocktail tables out there. If there's a wedding, there'd be a bunch of loose seats facing a particular direction as a backdrop, right? So it's putting in fixed furniture is something they want to avoid a little bit today, or at least for this presentation. We'll keep considering, all the comments from their presentation, of course. But
I just wanted to point out one thing. There was an article in Cranes this morning about Mike Deemer making a comment about pop-up retail that might need to be more regional and local. There may be an opportunity, hopefully that's not downtown, but it sort of spreads into other areas of the city. And that might be an opportunity to start talking about potential uses for this building. I like to think that we all sort of share information and we coordinate and collaborate. And that's an opportunity that might be fruitful. So I just wanted to provide that to the applicant. Thank you.
Do we anyone want to try to make a motion on that? We're going to start on the first one, just so you know. This is the conceptual approval, 2023-041.
I'm going to try.
Okay.
I think I have
Thank
these
you.
all numbered properly.
Okay.
4, 5. I move to approve item number 2023-41 for downtown flats, Globe Iron building restoration for conceptual approval with the following conditions. That the applicant address north facade to highlight unique architecture, address site design in such a way as to ensure an urban block form is maintained. 3, appropriate urban design elements are used to mimic city streets to provide pedestrian scale. 4, and eliminate suburban motifs. That's 1. Courtyards need further development with functional seating and passive programmatic elements. And 5, recommend applicant consult with landscape architecture firm further develop appropriate courtyard designs. There's one more I wanted to add, and I believe there was a comment made by staff concerning coordinating the county's pavement plan with your activities.
Second.
Motion and a second. Can we call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Swipe.
Yes.
Motion carries. Can you do the 3 demolitions too? They're final approval. They're next.
Okay.
Partial demo to include the comment about not damaging. Care not to damage.
Yeah, for all, yeah. I
Okay.
think that's
I was laser
Here
focused
you
on
go.
this first one, so I
Here you
might
go.
need a little help here.
Just, these are straight up final approval.
Okay.
They're 3 in a row.
All right.
They're the-
Gotcha. I move to approve item DF 2023-37, proposed partial demolition of a 4-story industrial building, with the caveat that they pay special attention to what's left on the existing building so as not to cause further damage.
Do you have a second?
I second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Almost got it. Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Swipe.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next one.
Sure. I move to approve item number DF 2023-38, proposed demolition of a 1-story industrial building, seeking final approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Swipe.
Motion carries.
Finally, as it connects to this development, I move to approve DF 2023-39, proposed demolition of a 2-story industrial building, seeking final approval.
Motion
I second.
and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Swipe. Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really heartfelt. Thank you for the partnership and collaboration. And this is going to be a wonderful project. So we look forward to seeing you back and seeing this move forward quickly. So thank you.
Thank you. We look forward.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
We have one more demolition. This is a different address. This is a 2023-061. This is proposed demolition of a one-story commercial building at 2343 Superior Avenue. Jeff Rivers, and anyone else, I'm going to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the whole truth? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury? Jeff Rivers?
Madam Chair, I did not see a Jeff Rivers online.
Okay. I forget, we don't postpone, we wait till the end of the meeting. What do we do?
Yes.
What is it?
You can table it to.
Well, not table.
No.
What's the thing?
We'll just move on. We'll just.
Okay, we'll just move on.
Table is end the meeting, postpone is another.
Technically, Madam Chair, if I may. Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes.
Table something, if you expect to come back to it within that same.
Oh, okay. Thank you,
Uh,
Mr. Robert Rules.
In Indian English, you can also pre-call something, which is.
Can we just skip over it?
The city planning commission that you can skip over.
Okay, so we're gonna skip over it. But remind us at the end of the meeting to do something.
It'll be a limbo.
All right, so we have mandatory referrals. This is ordinance number 1088-2023. This is giving consent to the City of Cleveland Director of Transportation, to the Director of Transportation, State of Ohio, to demolish the Eagle Avenue lift bridge. We saw this last week. So Rick is here to talk about it as well. I have a question. We didn't table this one.
This was postponed as well.
Okay. So when we postpone something, we don't have to read untable. I like it. Much more efficient. Okay.
We're getting there.
Is Rick here? There he is. Magic. Just as I said, Rick,
Oh,
you
man.
walked in.
We got
We've got like a whole team.
We got a lot of engineer types in here.
We got a lot of engineers today, which is why we're right on time.
Rick brought
Budget.
Rick brought reinforcements.
Well, we just read this one, so this is the 1088-2023, for the demolition of the Eagle Avenue lift bridge. So
Thanks, Rick Switowski, Manager Engineering Construction. On this particular one, the Eagle Avenue brick demolition, we came to you a couple of weeks ago with that one. And I brought with me Rob Fidel, I was out on vacation at that time, made that presentation. Rob's the manager of our roadway design section. And Mike Russell, recent hire, both recent hires, is the design section chief for all our bridges. So I thought I'd bring them in and let you guys.
Are you doing
meet
okay
them
so
and
far?
have them do the presentation.
You're surviving.
We're surviving. Yes.
No,
City Hall.
I'm taking it.
We hear stories about
I
that
have a
in
little
the
experience.
construction
I was
department.
here before, right? It must be good stories. I hope.
Yes.
All right, go ahead, Mike.
All right. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to present to you. Shall I start from the beginning, or do we want to just pick up from your questions from last time?
I think you can
Ma'am?
pick up from where.
Okay, so there were two questions that I'm aware of that the commission had to us. The first one was, is the bridge a landmark?
Yes.
She's not.
She.
All bridges are she.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
What's the historical context?
My Navy captain grandfather. That's where that
Okay.
comes from.
She.
So she's not a landmark. Landmarks is indicated that never has been. She is also, we're in active communication with SHPO as part of the environmental process through the district. It's not on SHPO's list either.
Okay.
Now, that said, we're not just gonna rip it out and leave a hole in the ground. The expectation is to, on the plans right now, is to remove the vehicular gate, the protection gate that is on the west side, have that removed, rehabilitated, repainted, and re-erected in place with the gate down. Also, to pull off one, maybe two of the counterweight shivs, the large wheels that the ropes go over. Pull those down, set those on the ground, so that people, that's a cool piece of its architecture, unique to lift bridges. So putting that back down to grade. It's also possible we may save some of the counterweight rope and incorporate that in. But the intent is to grab pieces of the structure and leave them in place so that people can have an experience with it. There is already, the Metro Parks has a interpretive kiosk for that bridge on the approaching trail. We are expecting that we'll probably want to do something similar, but have it coordinate. May give us a chance to talk about other things with that bridge. Are there any other questions on that before I plunge on to the next?
No.
Okay. So other questions. So what's our plan and what are the other movable bridges that the city has in its purview? There are 6 other movable bridges. There's the large ones we're all familiar with on the Cuyahoga River and Old River, Willow, Center Street, Columbus, which is a county bridge, but we operate and maintain. Carter and West 3rd, and the North Coast Harbor Ped Bridge is also in our purview. The inspection programs and schedules for those, they're broken into segments because we have to interface with the National Bridge Inspection System, Federal Highway Administration requirements that are administered by ODOT that we have to respond to. So the structure of these bridges is inspected at least every 2 years. In the case of Carter, every year. These are based on condition. The mechanical electrical systems are what we're calling an in-depth inspection. That's on a 5-year schedule. Now, they're maintained routinely. It's not like we walk away from the bridges, leave them exposed to the elements, and we don't come back every 5 years. No, James Leggins and the Bridges and Docks unit have electricians and ironworkers and mechanics. They're in there routinely. This is an in-depth inspection. Open up the boxes, open things up, make sure that they're still operating. And it's still operating well and the deterioration is not accelerating. These also happen to be over the river, which is why they're there. So an underwater inspection is also undertaken, separate contract, and that's also on a 5-year cycle. And the following, I've provided to you the details of those. I don't know if that's going to be of interest.
It begs the question, though, at some point, someone decided to stop maintaining the Eagle Avenue Bridge. Who decides that? Like, so the question, I think the purpose of asking it was, like, when does it, like, who decide, like, someone decided a while ago, we're not going to continue to maintain the Eagle Avenue Bridge, which is why it's in the condition it is, right?
Well, the Eagle Avenue Viaduct was demolished
Right.
20 years ago. So there were no cars going over that bridge for 20 years. And these are not inexpensive items to maintain and operate.
So just put it up, leave it. We're just
Put it
gonna
up,
see
leave
what-
it up, and
not deal with it.
And well, there are no other plans to replace the
Right.
Eagle Avenue Viaduct. So
Someone decided that. I'm just pointing it out. I understand it,
Yeah.
but.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I guess the next question to that is, there's no plans to do any other projects that would make the remaining bridges redundant or not used or something that we could end up in the same situation as the Eagle Avenue.
Right now.
That's,
Oh, no. Well, Center Street's right back in operation, much to the great relief of
Thank God.
of the Flatiron and
Yeah.
everybody who lives down there. We're pursuing funding right now for mechanical and electrical work on Carter Road, which has been the last of those in sequence. West 3rd was replaced 25-ish years ago and is still being maintained. If you go up and take your bike down the trail across Carter Road, it's pretty obvious that there's a whole lot of folks who are really interested in living in the flats. So that bridge is not going away. There's a definite need for her. Columbus is a county bridge, and that is everybody's secret weapon to get into downtown. I live on the west side. It's a secret weapon to get into downtown. Willow is a vital piece of our port. It's the primary, the cross over the old river. It's vital that stays as a crossing, but it has to be nautical available crossing, because Great Lakes Towing is one of the most important, one of the most important they're not a shipyard, that's in Toledo. But Cleveland is one of the few places on Lake Erie that if you need anything done to your ship, you can get it done in Cleveland, other than dry docking. And that's there. So we got to get across Willow. It's also one of the most important salt mines in North America. So, ta-da, we get to do both of those. And we'll have a movable bridge there, by God, even though that's in difficulty. So Eagle is an exception. There's not a stealth plan to get rid of these landmarks and cut off the transportation network.
So I would just say that the only bridge I can think of that's not on here, and which is not city owned, is the Flats Industrial. And I just foresee that, I don't say this with a smile on my face, but I foresee a similar future for that bridge, just because that rail spur is no longer used. Why would anybody pay to maintain a bridge that's not getting any usage? So I foresee that going away, and that's good on the Scranton Peninsula, because I think that creates almost like a rail trail possibility to get into like the new developments on like an abandoned rail line. But the need to get over to the Columbus Peninsula on rail is probably a thing of the past at this point. Not only the recent history that was being used. So
Any reason that it would be, you would keep it for a bike trail though? Would it, or
I
just
mean,
dead end
I'd
in
love
there?
to. I would imagine like the cost
just
of the
dead end.
up and down. Yeah, the up and down for the
Yeah.
bikes to be able to cross would probably be pretty expensive, and the Carter, you can do that up Carter and Columbus already. So
Metro Parks to the rescue.
yeah.
Um,
Are you listening to Metro Parks?
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
One more thing.
Are you out there? Just kidding. All right, thank you. I assume then you are asking us to go ahead and approve the demolition as requested in the mandatory referral. Any other questions or comments? This is a sad one, but we understand.
I will make a very sad motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Sad motion noted. And a second.
Thank you.
Thank you for this. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Ray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. So thank you very much. We have a few more actually that Rick is in charge of. 11822023. This is authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to apply to the District 1 Public Works Integrating Committee for state funding for portions of Shaker Boulevard and Buckeye Road.
Okay, you're a hard act to follow, so I would have asked to go first originally, but I guess I get to
There's also
follow the Eagle Avenue.
community in the engineering department.
Yeah, that's relief.
Yes.
I know.
So Rick, I know who to call if I want to feel better.
So have we done the Hawaiian shirt?
No.
Okay, just. I'm still fairly new here.
Okay.
Oh, look at us.
We do.
Really?
Where are they?
We're in the ENC, yeah, we,
Want it to look professional? You know that this is being recorded?
yes. I'm fully aware.
That's okay. Thank you for doing that to us, Rob.
I'm in the market for a long sleeve Hawaiian shirt, maybe with a scarf for the winter months. Okay, so Shaker Boulevard. So this is, we like to break down our projects into one of three categories, generally run, grow, or transform. You know, the run projects are your simple resurfacing projects, similar to West Third Quigley that was presented at the last planning commission meeting I was here. Grow are our more robust projects that might include some full depth pavement, might include some more, more enhancing of the curb and sidewalk pedestrian realm and whatnot. Might have some multimodal facilities, curb bump outs, parking, that kind of thing. Utility reconstructions as well. So in this case, this project is a good candidate for one of those middle kind of grow projects because It's a highly trafficked roadway. It has a dire need for utility for a water main replacement, which means it will score, theoretically, it will score well with issue one. So we plan on pursuing issue one funding for this project come next year, which would then put it into a 2026 construction project. So this ordinance right now is basically to authorize the Director of Capital Projects to enter into a design contract to pursue the issue one funding for the project. So this was also one of the projects that we presented to the Complete Green Streets Committee. So they had recommended we investigate certain treatments such as separated bike facilities, on here, parking study, minor curb relocations. You know, they do a site visit and they identify some things for us to look at in design. Traditionally with our design projects, we've kind of jumped directly into the detailed design. You know, we basically say, hey, engineering consultant, this is exactly what we want, put a set of plans together. So this is one of the first projects that we've been doing under this Complete Green Streets process. So what we're going to do as the engineering group is we're going to have the engineering consultant we hire as part of this do what we would call a preliminary engineering phase of the project, where they evaluate the Complete Green Streets elements that were proposed by the TAC, come up with some alternates for the roadway, and then we would pick a preferred alternate and then go into detailed design. So that's going to add we estimate about 3 months to the design process, but it'll give us a better final product. So estimated design or construction cost estimate, we're at about 8 million right now. The design estimate is generally 10% of that, so we're at about 800,000. You know, typically with the issue one applications, because of the scoring criteria changes over the past couple years or so, you know, we're having to request less of a portion of the project. We're having to put more local road and bridge bond money in these projects because we don't get as many points for things like economic health and ability to pay. You know, those categories that go with the issue one scoring have been changed over the last few years. So we're looking at about this probably being maybe a 60-40. We would request 60% of the construction funds from issue one, and the city would put forth 40% in order us to come to score where we need to score to win the project. So schedule, we're planning on starting the preliminary engineering efforts that I was just explaining mid next year. July 24 was my best estimate there. And then that would allow us to advertise in November 25, fall of 2025, to be under construction in 2026. And that's contingent upon the issue one application. I talked longer than I was planning on, so I'm sorry for rambling. Are there any questions?
I would just ask that with that thing, maybe it wasn't called special consideration, but considerations portion of this project that is on the Shaker Square.
Yep.
There is potential for an upcoming vision plan for Shaker Square. So that was a potentially contentious portion of the previous planning process in 2019. Okay. So working closely with the now new owner of that portion of the square and making sure that considerations for the roadway, especially if there's going to be, you know, significant modifications, kind of run through, I don't say a public process, but that the public people receive potential changes to that.
Yeah, and public engagement would be an integral part of that preliminary engineering phase. You know,
we're actually doing the roads around the square.
Okay.
In a Moelis project. Okay. That's being done at that point. So this project, the roads are already going to be in. We know about the development. All we did was put the roads back, resurfaced, beautiful, the way they sat, in line the way they sat. And then, however that is developed is the developer. So we've done that portion.
Thank you.
I have to say, the contractor's done a good job of managing.
Yeah.
Because that's a hard.
It is.
That's a hard intersection.
We divided that into 3 different phases.
Yeah.
And, it's going.
The first leg is about done. Yeah.
Yes, it's going well. Thank you.
I'm going to text our construction inspector right after I get out of here, let him know.
Don't tell them August said.
No. I'll keep it safely.
I don't get a false sense of, I like them. No, but anyway.
I'll make a motion in a second, but before I do, I have this dream, and I think Shaker Boulevard is 4 lanes, right? But it's not.
He's
It's
been
not.
very-
I have a dream about
That
Shaker
you can almost
Square.
have, instead of bike lanes, on one side, you could almost have like a 2-lane, like on 22nd, like a bike path.
Mm.
But then that could somehow, I don't know how to get across that intersection of the west end, but use Holton to like actually get down the hill, so you're not having to like ride bike lanes up and down Buckeye, because that's so high traffic. And could that get you on a bike facility from Shaker Square down into Kinsman and connecting with, I know there's like that ideas of like a bike path along Kingsbury Run that connects down into what's being built, like the Slavic Village connector. So is there a way within this project to kind of rethink, do we need 2 lanes in each direction on Shaker Boulevard, or is there an ability to do kind of a more enhanced bike infrastructure? So no bad ideas in brainstorming. We'll talk about it. So,
That
but
was
with
a
that,
long motion.
I will make a.
We had a motion to approve with a lot of commentary.
Second.
Second. I think that goes hand in hand with the comment about the Shaker Square plan, because that could all come
Yeah.
out together.
Yeah.
So can you call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Steiner,
Yes.
Spike.
Yes.
I'd like to point out the councilman's extreme knowledge of both the west side and the
Yeah,
east side
I
in
think he-
particular. It's
He wants to live.
astonishing. Like, what
I
happened?
used to work for the city. I would venture to guess that I've been on every street.
I got a spot for you on the east side. You need
Is
it.
that all right?
It got impressive today. So administrative approvals, there are 5 of them. Thank you all. Oh,
Do
what?
we have the demolition? Are we about to revisit the
Oh.
demolition?
Sorry, there's one more.
There's one that,
Okay. Oh, we have one more, but it's not you.
No.
It's
Oh.
you. It's it's the non-civilian version of Suzanne DeGenero.
Oh, there, yeah.
This is yes, so, this is Suzanne DeGenero in her official capacity, not her civilian capacity. Welcome back. Ordinance number
Should change your shirt.
1195-2023. You can tell we're slap happy. Authorizing Commissioner of Purchases and Supplies to sell city-owned air rights. Interest no longer needed for public use on Detroit Avenue adjacent to the West Village Cadell Rapids Station. Oh, is this for what we just saw?
Yeah.
It is.
Oh, it's part of that. Okay, you can go quickly then.
I'm gonna.
You should bow out. But you can go quickly since we saw it
Okay,
today.
sure. Yep, so as you may be aware that the city operated the Cleveland Transit System until the mid-70s when a lot of the assets were transferred to RTA, including this parcel adjacent to the Rapid Stop, but we retained the air rights over the parcel. RTA entered into an option agreement with the developers for transit-oriented development, and they need to purchase the air rights, the developer, from the city in order to have clear title. So this legislation would just allow us to transfer the air rights. The transfer would of course be contingent on the developer closing on the RTA land.
Is there a fee?
Yes, we did have the air rights appraised.
Huh,
Yeah,
interesting.
or actually the developer did. They had them
So
appraised.
there is an actual fee.
Yes.
And it's independent of the separate fee they're paying to RTA.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like we're New York City all of a sudden today. Look at us.
And we held on to them.
Okay.
And have some value.
Any other questions?
I'll move approval.
I second.
Motion and a second. I'll call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Spike.
Yes.
Motion carries. Great project. We probably should have done that with the other one, but that's okay. Administrative approvals, there are 5. You can see them here. And when someone is ready, we'll take a motion.
If I may mention, there is a planning one that we're really excited about, which is on-call professional services, and identified Stantec to be our.
Okay.
Okay.
I move approval.
I second.
These are administrative approvals. Motion and a second. Let August take a look at them. You okay with them? Those 5 right there? They're just administrative. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray, Pat,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slyder.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next item, I'm just gonna read this. We did see this. This is coming back for final approval. This is in St. Clair Superior. This is a placemaking project seeking final approval. These are 4 utility poles between 64th and Addison Avenue. At 6517, 6400, and 6510 St. Clair Avenue. And Joe Lancelota might be on. I see him actually. Do you
Hello,
swear to
everyone.
tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
All right, take it away.
All right, thank you, everyone. So you can advance through these next couple of slides showing the area and the locations of the artwork we look to implement here. You can kind of scroll through the thematic stuff. We talked about this last time.
I have a question. Who's doing this? The city, St. Clair Superior, Land Studio?
So this is
from
Land Studio in
project?
partnership with St. Clair Superior
Okay.
CDC. Yeah.
Okay, just one. Yep.
So the first project we're looking for final approval on is the Art Wall at 6517 St. Clair. Next slide will show you the location, or sorry, continue next slide. This is the location, and what we heard last time is we want to see the Art Wall banner moved up to be in line with the windowsill of the adjacent property next door. So next slide. So this is the general orientation of the banner. And this is the proposed artwork by local artist Aaron Williams, also goes by Awful Aaron. He is a St. Clair Superior resident and artist, and he created this work as part of a residency with Zygote. So that's also a partnership we're looking to build upon in the neighborhood. So this is one that we're seeking final approval on. And then if you could go to the next slide. Next slide. This is a second location for an art banner at 6400 St. Clair. Next slide. And we're looking to implement artwork by Aged Joy Grant, who is also a teaching artist at Zygote, and also has worked with the Cleveland Print Room. So next slide.
Are these
This
all
is-
applied vinyl? Are these all heat applied vinyl?
These would not be, no, these would be, so what we would do is we would attach an aluminum structure to the building that vinyl banners would then be stretched over, so.
Okay, so they can be changed. They're
Yeah,
digital.
They're digitally printed,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
Exactly like the cafe art wall on Public Square.
Yep, okay, got it.
And then this next site is a painted mural that we're looking to have implemented by Days One, who is also a business owner in the St. Clair Superior neighborhood, an artist who's heavily involved in the arts in Cleveland. Next slide. This is just to show kind of what his finished products look like. And this is the concept he's looking for. Last time, the committee wanted to see kind of what was going where on this building. So what he has proposed is kind of these 2 birds on the building, one on the front of the building and one on the side, and then they would be kind of connected by some foliage and tree branches and leaves and whatnot. So this is kind of the crude sketch of placement of where these objects will be. So you could go to the next slide. And then the banners for the poles. So we've identified these 4 pole banners in front of the Slovenian National Home. So this is all kind of within the same block. And what we're looking to do is implement, if you go back one, yep. We're looking to photograph with local photographer McKinley Wiley, different people from the neighborhood in these kind of very colorful and energetic portraits, and then we would post these up on the pole banners. And this is kind of a pilot project for this. I think what we would like to do in the future is to extend this specific pole banner project in other areas of the neighborhood, like East 72nd Street and further down St. Clair, where it makes sense to. So just a way to kind of highlight the people who make up the neighborhood, business owners, artists, residents, and so on.
Sorry to ask, I should ask, what's the source of funding for this?
So
I'm
this-
just asking if it's Cleveland Foundation.
No, this is Mandel.
Okay, thanks.
So those are the projects we're seeking final approval on.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I was late. I was talking to some students at Public Auditorium. They did, from what I could tell, submit the recommendations and, conditions from the last meeting a couple weeks ago, with providing, how they want, our position on buildings, as well as, I believe, another recommendation, from the, local design reviews to move the other mural on the system, the St. Clair, and move it up to stone. So they did that, and the last thing I believe that was recommended was removing St. Clair Superior branding from the banners. So, with all that said, to the city of China, everything they passed, and I'm actually for this, it's being approved.
Any questions?
Motion for approval.
Second. Motion and a second. I will say I really like the banners a lot. I love McKinley's work in general, but I like the simplicity and the idea, the boldness, the resonance. It's really nice.
Thank you. Yeah, we love his work. He does a really great job.
One consideration for us, we got over the motion approval. We did some banners in 5 points that are second. And I know one thing we didn't plan for is like prolonged sun exposure. So potentially looking at what that material is. So like the banners were blue, now they're purple because of the prolonged sun exposure. So just thinking about that, I know some of the images you presented might have some of those lighter tones, and making sure that longevity over time with that sun exposure, those images stay consistent with what they were supposed to.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
We'll call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry.
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. We have one before we have the director's report, approval for a new member of the Far West Design Review Committee, Patrick Hewitt, who's at the County Planning Commission. You have his resume. I do not know him I know of him. So,
I'll just say he's the brainchild behind all the countywide TOD work.
Okay.
So he's been project managing that, he was the interim county planning director before Mary joined. And so he's very well qualified. He's a Far West resident. So we're excited that he's going to serve the city.
Great.
Therefore, I move to approve Mr. Hewitt to Far West Side Design Review as a new member.
Second.
motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
and Craig Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Madam Chair,
Motion carried.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I would also move to postpone
Oh, yes.
item number DF 2023-061, proposed demolition of a one-story commercial building on Superior Avenue.
Check you out for remembering.
Good job.
Come on.
Do you have a second? That's a second. The second's Erica. Yes. Motion and a second. Call the roll. Good job.
My job. I gotta protect the chair.
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
and Craig Scott.
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. Before the director goes, I want to make one comment, observation, and then it's a question for my commission members. And I'm very torn about this, which is, I love the hybrid nature of this in the Zoom, but nobody comes anymore. And so I know it's better for us. The conversation is actually better on Zoom. I felt like it was really hard to know who's going to speak, and so it's better for us. But I'm just wondering, like, what's the balance here? People are busy, so they shouldn't have to come here all day for a meeting. I get that. But we are also coming here and sitting here and everybody's on Zoom. So do we need to do it? Should we be on Zoom? I prefer this, but I'm asking from a efficiency point, it's just an odd. So I don't know if you guys have this at council, like, is there any discussions
We've
about
gone
like?
fully in person. I mean, we
Yeah.
still publicize and like we still have things available on YouTube and everything for the general public, but we no longer have virtual committee meetings or council meetings.
But I also respect that residents and other people can't always take up the whole morning and the agenda. So like, I'm also like the presenters.
Right.
That's what I mean, not the public, the presenters. So, but what's happened is nobody shows up to present.
This is a large deal.
Yeah. So any thoughts? You don't have to answer it today. I just want to put it out there of like, is this the new norm? We just come here and get on Zoom?
Pardon?
Like people, but is there a compromise position where yeah.
Yeah.
I also, like, today I found myself thinking that even when people came in person and presented, they were better able to point at things, to describe them in a way that, like, we're trying to figure out where they're talking about it. Not that it's okay, we're smart people, we can figure it out, but.
So the encouragement is for people to come in person if possible.
Yes.
Because that way they can actually have a conversation with us.
See.
The question is
Yeah, mandate just-
I think it's a mandate. I'm gonna tell you why. Conversely, but seriously, conversely, I can work anywhere in the world. I'm traveling now. I work in an airport. You can work anywhere now. So it's not like they say I can't get anything done. So, that's just me.
There is Wi-Fi, you are
And
correct.
I agree, if the project is that important to you, you should make room on your schedule to show up in person like you do, to make your presentation.
Because body language is everything to me.
Yeah.
Not everything, but it's.
I mean, I think we can make exceptions, but maybe that we start to swing more towards you come to the meeting, but we can always make exceptions because there are gonna be times that we're traveling and we need a quorum and it's an important thing.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the default, maybe.
Okay,
I
good
like
point.
it. So it'll be a special exception, but be in person.
Yeah.
You ready?
But if someone has like a architecture firm that's in New York and they can't fly in, I get it. But it's nice to have an applicant here.
I do have one thing, Director, if you don't mind, we're taking some of your
Sorry.
air. When we were reviewing the conditional use, you made a comment that we are not focusing on design, but the operative word is planning. And I think a lot of the issues that were brought up relative to trash and clearances between buildings were legitimate. What I might offer in the future is, instead of providing an actual depiction of what this project is, provide a massing model. Just a gray or a white box, identifying the setbacks and how this thing might be sculpted, so that we focus on not the design, but we can focus on site-related items. Because trash containers are becoming a problem in the city. And I don't want to speak for Charlie, but I'm sure my council person, Mr. Griffin, gets calls about people leaving their trash containers on the front stoop, or, literally, we need to start thinking about this as a city, how we approach the things that, quite frankly, are important to our residents. So I just wanted to point that out.
That's fair. I think one comment back to the commission member, it is kind of a fuzzy area. Townhouse code is a little bit about design, but it's more about the structure and how it relates to everything else. So there is a little bit of a design component, and maybe we can do a refresher on the townhouse code too.
Yeah.
But I think those comments are great. Maybe I'll Hope to loop back with zoning staff to see how much we can integrate things like traffic. Yes.
I think that one meeting, most of you were not members, they had determined that, conditional use for a townhouse and together district needs for approving the site. So all the comments regarding the site are appropriate.
Okay.
Good, thank you. Okay, all right. Director Wong, I apologize.
All good. Next slide, please. First of all, I appreciate the environment and the congeniality today, so I really appreciate that. I'm here before you to be transparent, that I signed off on some plats, didn't realize that they needed to go to the planning commission, and here's why. Because they received BCA resolutions related to the resizing of the lots. So this is related to the presentation Khalid gave this morning with Henrietta Homes. It's very small, but the lot lines are just being moved so that they're even and not uneven. So it's hard to see. Yeah, if you could zoom in just to each photo, you'll see the before and afters.
We forgive you.
Thank you. I thought I had authority with BZA, but if we're following our laws.
They're pretty minor.
They're pretty minor, so they're shifting the lines over just a little bit to make them even, and the frontages are just less than 40, so that's fine. So I'm here to report that out, that there are BZA resolutions if you're interested in hearing about that. But if there are no further questions or comments, we can. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for coming clean.
Next slide, please. Upcoming session, we're really proud of how the city of Cleveland is now being represented in conferences across the US. Matt Moss is presenting at the Impact Mobility Community Possibility Conference in Phoenix next week on transit agencies and NPOs stepping up to ZTOPs. So that's around the Transportation Demand Management Program that the city's working on. Slide. Here are some photos from community engagement sessions. So Lee Road and the Lee Road Master Plan was tapped out, both for the capital project and for the corridor plans. Lots of great opinions. Seems like the residents are just ready for a change in general with the corridor and the design of the capital project. We'll be drawing a lot from the Shaker Heights Lee Road plan as well. North Coast Lakefront has been quite active. We've been out in the community at Dave's Markets. We had two sessions. One was a Pachanga, which is the 20 slides, 20 seconds talk, where different community members, actually including Drew, talked about their community's relationship to the lakefront, and it was a great challenge. We had Cynthia Connolly representing the Native American community, who really pushed our thinking about what does it mean to have a reciprocal relationship, and that talking about the lake as an asset is like jarring because it's not just a thing. It's a living part of it. So it was a great session. We were at the Happy Dog earlier this week as well with Mordecai Cargill and Allison, who is the local partners in the bucket. I will mention there's an upcoming Superior Midway meeting next is it next Tuesday or two Tuesdays from now, November 14th, at 2400 Superior Avenue at 6 p.m.
Folks who haven't seen the shop presentations, I would encourage you to watch them and share them. I think the varied history of around the lakefront presented by residents of Cleveland is a very interesting perspective. I think everyone outside of me did really well.
No,
presentations. I just encourage people to go on. I think they were really, really good. Theirs were just better. I would just encourage people.
So we covered Green Book Cleveland, we covered Asia Town, we covered Underground Railroad, and you kind of just a Hammer resident perspective, and I love the water, and I thought that was great too. So, we'll send the rumble link. Urban Land Institute, we did a 2-day Art in Place panel with artists. So it was really great to be in a room with Sean Watterson and Rika Sherry Clark, some folks from Land Studio, as well as developers to talk about how arts and real estate development can come together to do city building. So those recommendations will come out. I'm happy to share them as they get finalized. Next slide. In the news, we can just keep going. There's a lot of media hits on Lakefront. There was one recently about the Lee Road Master Plan as well, which I'll add in the next report. And I think that's it. So any other miscellaneous items that we need to have today?
No?
It occurred to me, now that we have Phil Kidd on board, he's the new Clayton Green Streets and Trails Coordinator, he's been knocking it out of the park. Crazy. So I wonder if it would be helpful to you all if he came in to talk a little bit about his strategies. He's really supercharged in increasing tree canopy, has worked really hard to present some real great strategies. So if you find that to be helpful, we can.
Did he just start as well? Bill?
Bill?
Yeah, he just started.
Couple months.
Couple
Maybe
months.
like-
Couple months.
It's great.
So we adjourned?
Return.
Thanks, everybody.